Welcome, everyone, to the Change Starts Here podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Odham. And on this week's episode, we welcome a good friend of mine, Daniel De Los Reyes, who is the principal of Charles Darwin Elementary School in Chicago Public Schools. I've known him since he was a fifth grade teacher. When I walked into his classroom, I guess probably 9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, with his fifth graders, I was blown away by what I saw. And it wasn't just his level of teaching, it was the level of engagement of his students was unlike almost any classroom I've ever been in, because it wasn't about just being engaged to the subject. It was about fifth graders thinking about life bigger than themselves, thinking about their community in a way that had them transformed into the problem solvers of their community challenges. And so Danny, who's again now the principal, but at the time we dive into what made him an effective teacher. We talk about the balance of genuine love for students and creating that safe space and fun space with high expectations and how that can lead to increased performance. We talk about the challenge of a journey of a school that was one of the lower performing schools in all of Chicago Public Schools to now one of the top performing schools in all Chicago Public Schools. How they got there, the challenge of getting there, the challenge of sustaining that kind of momentum. We dive into Danny's history. Danny's the son of two immigrants from Mexico and how that shaped his life. We talk about how a shooting outside of his house changed the future of his career and what he wanted to do with his life. If you're someone listening to this who just wants to learn from someone with a different perspective, wants to learn from a truly humble leader, this is a great conversation for you to listen to. Danny is first and foremost about everyone else before he's about himself. And so I keep calling him Danny. It sounds younger. Some people call him Daniel. I learned today, I've known him for a decade. I learned today that, he had a student call him De Los because his name's Daniel De Los Reyes, where now I think a lot of Chicago public school principals are actually calling him De Los. So I actually really love that. But I've called him Danny for so long, I can't break it, even though De Los is so cool to me. This man, I would sign up to listen to it any day. Like I said, 10 years ago, I still remember the moment I walked in this classroom, and it wasn't about him, it was about the culture he created. He's someone that you can learn from by them just listening to you and them asking you questions. And so he's just an inspiring person. This is a great conversation. It's such an honor to have him. And like I said, wherever you are, if you're listening from an educator's perspective of trying to understand how to get better, from a classroom leader to a school leader to thinking about building district leadership, this is a great conversation. You're just someone who's interested in learning about just people in general, this is a great conversation. So please join us, stick with us. If you haven't hit subscribe already, please subscribe to us and however you're listening to us. We cannot thank you enough for your support. Without you, we would not obviously have this podcast, and it's a real fun and joy and pleasure for us to have and talk to all these amazing people. So thank you for your support. Again, enjoy this conversation. Danny, Daniel, De Los, whatever you want to call him, is an amazing person, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. We've got lots of things to cover today. And it's a huge honor for us to have you here on the podcast. I've known you for almost a decade and fell in love with you as a person, but also your leadership style when I got a chance to first walk into your classroom probably 8 years ago is probably now. And so thanks for making time. I know your life's really hectic and busy as a principal in Chicago Public Schools right now. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me out. I appreciate the Leader in Me community, always supporting and providing great energy.
Yeah, man. Well, let's start with the question we ask everybody at the beginning of a podcast, which is, who are you and what do you love about what you do?
Yes. Well, I'm the son of two immigrant parents from Mexico who came to be more, do more, become more. And that's something that is a sort of fixture that continues to burn strong in me. I'm the father of three who all came into this world with different paths, different journeys, different gifts, different talents that have provided me with a different perspective. Each one is unique. And I know many parents say that, but man, they really have provided me with different perspective. And, I'm the husband of my high school sweetheart. And we had two different lived experiences growing up And maybe that was the bond, the sort of perspectives gained and being in one's life. And now we just grown together. And so she's a teacher down the street. And so we live, breathe, serving the community and education. And as far as myself, I'm just continuously evolving, searching for more, wanting more. And again, seeing my parents do and become, live their lives out, now retired, has sort of really set the precedence for wanting to be more, do more. And so as far as, what I love to do and what is my passion, for a long time, it's always been about serving others, serving the community, providing. I remember growing up, I was part of, different hip hop groups, try to create my own album and have, different breakdancing and rapping experiences and having a crew and being at the head of crews and throwing different functions for others and providing for others. As in college, I became a support staff member inside of different communities out in the city, predominantly West Englewood, West Lawn community, really serving and living out that passion. And that's why teaching and being a principal really resonated with me. Serving others, growing forward, providing is really self-fulfilling for me. It really lives out my passion and mission. And I love to see my efforts impacting others' lives for the better. And so that has always been the sort of crux of what makes me fulfilled and happy. And now joining that with having my own son in my school, having my wife down the street serve the same community, but in her building. That's just joining my family and personal with my professional life fulfillment. And so kind of seeing the thread there, Justin.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think anybody, I'm convinced anybody who's known you, at least the time I've known you for a decade, would say you are a natural fit for education, and whether it's teaching or leading a school or being within a district world or outside, but working with kids or working with teachers or educators, you're just a natural fit. I'm curious, given your background, did you always know that you were going to be an educator? Did you always know that you were going to go into teaching? And if not, how did you get into teaching?
Yeah, no, not at all. You would have, 25 years ago, I would have had my world tour by now. I would have been in fashion or marketing or something of my, 25 years ago self. That was my passion. I actually, went into supporting my brother in real estate and really liked the personal people connection. And therein lies, I think, the crux of all this as well. Connecting with people is something I'm passionate about, relating and serving others. But what usually happens is life plays itself out and these sort of lived experiences present themselves. And so, I graduated from college with just a sort of liberal arts, sort of just general degree, and began working and serving inside Chicago Public Schools as a support staff member. And it was actually on one of my vacation times. It was a year-round school, so school was in session, but I was on vacation and I lived a block away from the school when, one of these events really impacted and changed my lives. There was a living in, the West Englewood, Chicago Lawn community. There tends to be a lot of violence in the community. There's a lot of beautiful things, but one of the aspects is some of the violence that occurs. And there was a tragic event where a student, a former student of the school that I served, was shot and killed on my lawn. And I was first on the scene alongside my wife. And I could remember vividly, standing at the end of the block, preventing children from seeing what had occurred. And I remember this little guy's face. And that coincided with a lot of my, ongoing learning, pursuit of just, evolving as a person. And I was just really, really looking to serve my community better, even as a support staff member. And so when that was presented, the very next day, I sat with a group of young students from the school and said, what do you love about your community? What do you, who are the people and the places that make you the happiest being in your community? What challenges and what changes would you like to see in your community, and how would you like to bring about those changes? And of course, the catalyst of that was the event that had taken place the days before, and just listening to the young people really share themselves, given the opportunity to really communicate their lived experiences, their voice, and really seeing them on fire to be the change, really created this fervor to want more and teach and engage young people that really hadn't been there, and the passion to do that really hadn't been there in other places in aspects of my life as well. And so it was working with young people, this lived experience as the catalyst, that brought about a change in me and helped me, see and live out the voice that they presented on that day. And the impact was real. Within that group, I now have a young lady named Paola who now works with me here at my school, Darwin. And she's a special education classroom assistant. And I knew her as a young person, and now she's a young adult. And again, these lived experiences, the opportunity to hear voice, really impact me as much as I try to serve others. And so that passion to become and pursue education, be a teacher, and which, led to my administration roles, was really ignited by by the youth that I serve, the young people and their voice, and they're wanting to change and be change agents in their community.
So, sorry to cut you off. Let's go there for a second, because as you know, my role outside of doing this podcast offers me the opportunity to travel to lots of states and across the U.S. and see a lot of classrooms. And I would put my first experience 8 or 9 years ago in your classroom up against any. And the power that I remember, right? You always say, like, people may forget all the things you said and did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. I went in there, and just like people who are listening right now can feel your sincerity, heart, and passion for serving. You were able to create a community of kids who had a vision that was greater than themselves. I think they were fifth graders. Am I right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were fifth graders, I believe, at the time, that were talking about things in their community that were bigger. It took me 20 years to start considering, and they were like debating solutions for those things. How were you able to create that type of community in a classroom? Because I feel like that's what all educators are striving to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I would say a number of things, but 2 poignant things. You have the pedagogy of care. There has to be an unprecedented amount of love and support, balanced out with an unprecedented amount of expectations and excellence. Those have to be in balance with one another at a very high level. And so when I mentioned my lived experiences as a support staff member prior to becoming a teacher, so that was my transition into the teaching role. It may seem hyperbolic, but in my mind, when I started teaching, I felt that for many of the children that I served, that if I did not instill the skill set and the tools for them to be analytical, critical, to be able to voice themselves, then many would not have the opportunity to be the leaders that I know we all possess within us. And so there it is. Understanding that that the need is high, but the potential is great. There has to be a balance of love and care. Often repeated in my classroom as a teacher, you would hear, I want you to be a leader. I want you to be the best. You could do it. Don't let this bother you. Don't let this, impede on what you could do. Coupled with a lot of, what could be deemed chucking and jiving when the work was done. A lot of partying, pizza parties, and work, experiences outside of the classroom, weekends, and playing music, listening to music, singing, and also when you walked in the room, a lot of conversation and critical thought into their writing about what may be deemed as inappropriate topics for their age group. But yet they're immersed in these experiences, and we don't talk about it. We ignore it. And we assume that they're too juvenile in the classroom to be talking about these things, but then they go home and they live these experiences and don't have an outlet for it. And so that sort of dynamic is what really became the sort of the approach. Again, the pedagogy of care and love.
So that's powerful, because I feel like that screamed out from your students, right? So when I talked about the observation, I'm not talking about anything about you, and I think you're an amazing man and leader and person, but it was all about like whatever you created allowed kids to bubble up and believe and mature and communicate. And so I think one of the challenges I would have going from a classroom to a school leader where you're at is the pressures of, we've got to have academic growth. We've got to have improved performance. And so you're in these meetings that say, or expectations that are really heavy. And let's say you walk into your old classroom where it's one of the days where it's designed in your pedagogy to be like, we're listening to music today. We're having different types of conversations. We're eating pizza. How do you balance those in your role now to allow your team to have the freedom to build relationships while also getting the results that kids need to be successful in the world?
The foundation of any growth and excellence is really built upon love and trust. And so within the classroom, the voice of our students, of my students, needed to be heard, and it needed to be reflected in their work. And so as an administrator, the approach has been the same. With our parents, I really tried to open up parent meetings. We call them cafecitos, coffee talks with the principals. During the pandemic, there was really a unprecedented amount of virtual town halls that we did. We went on a blitz of 40 town hall online meetings within 60 days, January and February of 2021, and opening up those opportunities, really adhering to the distributive leadership model within our school, which for me really seeks to identify, tap, set up support for our support staff and teachers to be in committees, to be in leadership roles. So when I was a support staff member who did parking lot duty, cafeteria duty, and understood that I had my thoughts and opinions and saw myself relating with children, I now understand that there are support staff members in our building that have lived experience and leadership potential to be tapped. And so support staff members are here. Our lead custodian and all of our support staff members, our lunchroom manager has her grandchildren here. And so you see that throughout the building. And it comes from my perspective and lived experience. So opening up voice to not just parents, support staff members, but of course our teachers, and allowing their voice in the say. Our school improvement plan is really facilitated. I really facilitate the questioning around it, but our teachers and staff really create our school improvement plan. And my mantra is, if I ask something of you, I then have to create a system for support. And so again, opening up channels and listening with great intent and integrity is one way that I've been able to approach it. And I'm just going to say this. I am a native son of the community I work for. Yep. I grew up around the block. My son is literally what divides me and my son right now from where I speak are 2 walls, and 2 doors. And when you have your heart in the school, which is in my case, my son, that is a different perspective. I don't easily disregard things or make hastily decisions, because my son's here. And I was sort of presented with this thought some years ago in talking to my wife. And she mentioned to me, Danny, you sacrifice and have sacrificed for the well-being of other people's children. And I know you're in this administrative role now, but your son needs you. And for those who aren't aware, my son is on the spectrum. My son has gone through a number of challenges in his life that has really changed my perspective on a number of things. But when my wife sort of presented that thought to me, this idea that I need to be there for my son even more so now, despite the abundant challenges in my role, that for me was a direct sort of call to be more, do more, and to evolve within myself, not just as a father and but also as a principal. And for me, those things are very symbiotic right now.
So you and I have had this talk. I think your wife sounds so wise, and we've talked about her wisdom. I think that this one child you're talking about is the same one when you were a teacher. You were going back and forth to the hospital and teaching and going through just some real challenges. I often think about, when I think about educators, I think about my wife and education. I think about my friends who, the best educators get so passionate about serving the kids that they get in the community they have in front of them that oftentimes, just like your wife says, you can get lost in the work and accidentally, not purposely, forget about your most precious family next to you. How do you create, as a leader, a culture for you and your staff so that they can be invested in the community, love, serve with open hearts, but never forget the most important relationships they have in their life, which are their personal ones that are often, not in your case, obviously it's inside your school, but often outside the school?
Yeah. We, as a school community, we are a values and mission driven community. As an individual, I am a value and mission driven individual. And so it really starts and is based on one defining their mission, a group defining their collective values. And so you see our individual mission statements posted outside of our main office for all of our staff members here. You see our collective mission, which is to grow leaders, posted prominently outside of our main office. And we all understand our paradigms, which we live around, and we balance ourselves, and we often recalibrate around. As an individual, alongside, in front of my students, who you mentioned when I was a teacher, I created my personal mission statement with them as a, gradual release model. Like I do, we do, now you do.
Yeah.
And so I presented and sort of thought out loud my mission statement that continues to be my personal mission. And the gist of it is to serve my family, my children, my wife, my parents, and serve my students and their parents and our school community. And so when it becomes very clear and succinct as to what the mission is, then we rally around each other and we set goals that we move forward with together. And it's undeniable when we have a collective group of values to really butt up against. To say that we do not see the potential in all of our kids, like who's going to argue with that? Who's going to argue with serving and doing and providing more? And so we often run around endlessly, tirelessly, going home defeated without a set purpose or mission. And so it is extremely important for those who I work alongside of to really define oneself as personal mission and to really be attuned to what our collective mission is. So when my wife presented me with the thought of needing to be balanced in not only serving my school community, but my children at home, what she did was she checked me on my personal mission statement, and she knew it. And so I can't argue with that.
I'm going to have her join the podcast next time, and I'm going to talk to her and just have you as a little bubble in your facial reactions on the side, because it sounds like a great relationship.
It's like pop-up wife video, like yeah.
Have her jump in. So again, we've known each other for about a decade, and when we met, I believe your school community was kind of, I don't remember what the rating system is, Danny, but like our De Los, I love to call you that. We need to dive into that before we get out of here. But like, I feel like whatever the rating system was, you had great people there, a great community, but the rating system said your school was a D or something, right? And you guys poured in, worked hard, had some super talented, passionate people there that built your community up. That was always great, but you're able to show what excellence was over time, where you guys became, a top-rated school. Can you just tell me a little bit about that climb, and then I want to dive into the leadership transition. So just tell me about the climb first.
Yeah, we were all tired of the suspension rate, the low academic outcomes, and lack of opportunity we were providing our community, our students. And honestly, it really started with that. Like we knew we could do more and be more as a community. And it just really started with the folks who had been here for some time and really became the catalyst to say, like, this needs to stop. And we need to become more. And that coincided with our journey into Leader in Me. That really took the approach to look at an individual, to look at a school community approach as a more comprehensive, personal, interpersonal journey. That is where the journey begins, with oneself, and then developing a community that has a set core values to it. And so you asked earlier, how does one balance now being an administrator with the academic sort of expectations? Well, what happens is when one focuses on oneself and oneself's journey and growing and developing and then becoming a community, then you start to create a very strong community that really synergizes and works together. The byproduct is high academic achievement, because to really to really serve a community, one has to love, and one has to present and provide the tools to grow academically as well. So to that point, as a teacher, yes, we had a great time. We synergized. The culture was strong. The byproduct was the highest academic reading levels 3 years in a row within our network of 30 plus schools.
And I think you guys became like one of the top 10%. I'm going to be terrible with the numbers here, right? Out of 600 something schools, or maybe it's less or more, you guys went to like the top 10%. You went from like the bottom 10% to the top 10% over 3 to 5 year period. Is that correct?
The growth was significant. And again, when we really focused on building a strong community, coalescing around values and creating a very poignant mission to move forward with, the byproduct was not just a stronger community, but high academic achievement levels.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one of the things I don't think I've ever asked you is, obviously, Mr Scovia was the principal at the time when we met, and I adore that man. I think he is one of the hardest workers I've ever met. But I think we would both agree that his personality and my personality are different, and his personality and your personality are different, which means our leadership styles would be different. And so I have wondered, so, he was the principal during a lot of that climb, and then he transitioned out to a different role within the district, and you come in, which is awesome, especially for the sake of the community and continuity and all that. But I have to imagine stepping into his shoes, not because of like you can't live up to him, but because it's been a certain style of leadership for so many years, and your style is not that. Can you tell me how you juggled that transition and how you found your footing so that your culture is natural to your style and it's not, just repeating the same culture that went with Mr. Scovia? Yeah.
And so, to your point, he and I may have differed in personality, but we strongly aligned in our values.
I would agree.
And so we carried together, and he saw in me the passion to serve, the work ethic and desire to make and bring about change. And I saw that in him. And I saw his love and passion for the community that he served on 2 different schools, because we worked in 2 different schools on 2 different sides of town. But the mission was the same, which was to serve and grow leaders in the communities that we worked for. And so when, again, personalities can differ, which is the case in every workplace and organization, but when the values are the same, there is synergy and an opportunity to synergize with one another, and there's an opportunity to do great things. And so with that, the transition was different. We differ in age, in generation, in culture. He's from a different country, and so regardless, the values remained in place here at Darwin. There were different approaches that were taken, but the values and the goals and the mission remained. And so the what he saw in me as a support staff member, and what he cultivated into becoming his predecessor, the next administrator, still is what played out, which is I'm owning it now. I feel hard, though, isn't it? I feel as if there were some growing pains. Yes. But having gone through this pandemic, having gone through 3 work stoppages in 27 months here in CPS, I'm going to, I feel like you need to be bold. You need to understand who you are and really grab it to move forward in this challenging environment, because challenges are abundant in public schools now. And And I am extremely, extremely proud of what we did together. And there is a strong sense of obligation that I carry within to live that out and not let down the community that we serve.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I first met Mr Scovia, he and I bonded really quickly. And again, to your point, I think it's because of how I appreciate your clear articulation today of mission and values. Is that like while we had different personalities, we were both crystal clear what we were about, just like you are. And I remember the first time, like I went to visit everybody, I talked to you, and I visited all your teachers, came back, and I was like, so tell me about, I asked about a few of the teachers. And, even though I knew from that moment, his style, I could tell was a lot different, felt different than what your style would be as a teacher. His belief in you was off the charts. His excitement when he talked about how you poured into your kids and what you went after was off the charts. And so one of the things that I would wonder is that I loved it. He always saw your potential, and I hope that you see it because I know myself, I think stepping into a mentor's shoes, it would probably take me 3 or 4 years, maybe, to get the confidence to really just put my stamp on it because I was trying to honor him. I didn't want to mess things up and all the things, but I feel like you should know from day one in my relationship with Mauricio that there was a glow about him when he talked about you, and it was about you being you, not you being some version of what he wanted you to be. And so I just think that's always been cool. And I hope you feel that and use that as you continue to lead within your school community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that love and acceptance that he provided me is something that I need to continue to ground myself as I continue to lead and work with others in my community.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. Again, when I did the intro and I mentioned Chicago public schools, anybody who reads a newspaper is aware that, it's been partly COVID. Obviously, it's a big part of it, but, teacher strikes has been something that has been something you guys have kind of lived with. What have been the keys to keeping your staff together or trying to keep it together? I'm sure it doesn't feel perfect. And, I don't want to put you in an awkward situation when I ask this question, but what are the key components of trying to lead through that kind of instability of sorts right now?
It really seeking to understand what our teachers are advocating for, providing the sort of context under which we currently are working and serving under together, and really seeking out solutions that are going to help us move forward has been the approach. And so coupling that with, really presenting folks with the decisions that they have to make. And so the discussions have often been, I hear what your concerns are. This is what I am. This is what we are working on together. And at the end of the day, you need to make the best decision for you and your family as you see fit. And when addressing the teachers at large, you all need to determine as a teachers, as a labor organization, what you see as the best pathway moving forward. And it's been challenging. It's been difficult because, building momentum, building culture is really built on the momentum gained from piecing together and building together one piece at a time. And when that momentum is lost, it's hard to recapture at times. And so that is what I would say has been one of the most challenging parts of the ongoing, labor, negotiations and stoppages here in TPS. As a leader, it's been extremely challenging building and sustaining momentum as a collective.
Mm.
And so continuously seeking out and learning and listening what it is that our teachers are concerned about. Really assuring our staff that they're being heard and that we're going to move forward being solutions oriented has been the pathway moving forward. But nonetheless, it's been extremely challenging. It's been extremely challenging, and I really hope that both sides continue to seek each other out, and really take that same win-win approach.
So when they will, because I know that they will, and especially within your school, because I know how you love and serve people, and so I'm confident that you'll figure it out within your community, if nothing else. What's the vision you have for Darwin a year from now, or 2 or 3 or 5 years from now? What is it that when you think about the vision that you're working towards? Because again, you guys have fought really hard to build this great culture of excellence and community and family. Yeah. What's the next step for you guys?
I would say that the vision for Darwin is to impact our community and surrounding neighboring schools in helping and growing and serving their leadership development as well. And so what that means is having our children out in the community more, engaged with local organizations like churches and businesses and non-for-profits, and working and collaborating with them. And that's taking place. Having our teachers, as they've been expressing, work with aspects outside of the academics within the community. And it's been touched upon within the last sort of labor negotiations and concerns that have been brought up, serving communal needs such as health and housing needs within the community, beyond just the educational needs of our community. And to that same aspect, lending and supporting, mentoring and collaborating with other schools on their leadership development approach. And so what that may boil down to is building leadership capacity and sharing our leader in me and listening and growing with other schools. And so what you see, sort of what I would say is the vision is a sort of emanating pulse, right? That sort of pulses out to share with our community, but sort of gradually pulses back in and takes in what we've learned from the community, what we've learned from other schools, to recalibrate our efforts in better serving the community.
That's so powerful to me, because I remember our first year of getting to know each other. You guys went to visit school after school in different areas, and you guys were just sponges, right? And so I feel like that has always been a part of the Darwin DNA, it feels. And so it's also refreshing to know that you guys may have a vision to see how you can give, and then as you're giving, continue to use that key DNA you have to receive and get better for yourselves.
To that point, Dustin, I have three of my department heads and my assistant principal who all had leadership roles at different schools. I have 2 former principals on my leadership team, and who have a lot of experiences from the communities that they served, who really pour into me different perspectives that they've gained in order to better serve our community here. And I've learned lessons in particularly like strong voices and listening to strong voices in the group to really help me develop. And so we talked about, how does one transition into a role that had a very strong, predecessor, leading figure in. Well, you bring strong leading figures around you, and you listen and you open up to their ideas. And for me, it's been a very ongoing, humbling experience to just continuously listen and open up and understand that I I have a lot to learn as much as I have to give.
Well, that's refreshing, because I feel like there are some leaders who are intimidated to have really talented people around them, and so it's refreshing to hear that. It seems, at least on this podcast, we have found folks that the strongest leaders are constantly looking for A+ people to be around them so they can learn and grow together. So they're evolving much more quickly. So, all right, last 4 questions. They're all kind of rapid fire, so feel free to dive as deep as you feel like you need to, but it's our last segment. Our first question is, what habits or disciplines do you use on a either daily or weekly basis that you think help set you up to be the most successful version of yourself?
Personal renewal, making sure that I'm eating, sleeping on a continuous basis. I recently lost 45 pounds and since July to now, because I at first stopped eating meat for a couple years, and now just kind of ventured into veganism. And I'm Mexican, so like a Mexican descent. So when like you say Christmas, there's like frijoles, tortillas, there's different meats and cheeses and sauces. Like someone asked me, like, how do you do it? You're Mexican. I said, you know what? Like, I'm just finding new ways, right? And that's very much still a staple when I go visit my mom. But again, personal renewal, wanting more, wanting to be more, and having to do more. One has to be better to themselves. And so that's the personal physical renewal. Beginning with the end in mind also helps. I send out a weekly bulletin to my community. I send out a weekly staff bulletin to my community. So essentially what I have to do is on a weekly basis communicate to our parent community what's forthcoming for the next 2 weeks. I have to, on a weekly basis, communicate to our staff what the goals are for the next week. And so beginning with the end in mind, planning the week ahead are very important. And then, again, just balancing myself and my mission. Deep-rooted commitment to the people I serve is very important.
Awesome. There's that favorite bell out.
To announce that recess will be held indoors. It will be indoor recess. And we're following week B.
It's the wind chill is -10 over here in Chicago today, so inclement weather, indoor recess, y'all.
Lauren, do not cut that. That is so real right there. And I'm like, when Chicago goes indoor recess, it's cold.
Well, the fact we're in school, it's -10 wind chill, we're still plugging along, like that speaks a lot of the Chicago mindset. It's -10 wind chill, just like put your jacket on, and we'll see you soon. So there it is.
Play. All right. So next question: what books, either through your formative years, that have just been transformative to you, or recently, and it could be books or podcasts, however you consume information, that have really helped grow your leadership or your thinking in life?
Yeah, I would say foundational pieces have been Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. Paulo Freire's pedagogy, books on pedagogy have always been very foundational for me, really serving and listening. And then recently I was gifted The Boy, the Mole, the Fox by Charlie Maxey. And it's just, it really is a renewal into sort of recalibrating how to serve. And that was just a recent Christmas gift that I received, and so check that out. It's a very light, sort of read, but very, very poignant into hitting one's personal mission.
Awesome. All right, you talked about music with your students, so I'm curious, when you're commuting to or from work, or I guess you have your son in the car with you, or riding with you or whatever, or while you're working out, what's on your playlist? What are what's the music or the artists or the songs you have right now?
Yeah. So on the ride home, I really connect, and even with my son, we listen to some appropriate reggaeton, which is a mix of like, reggae, hip hop, in the Latino community. So we, a lot of Ozuna, and then we mix it up with some dance, DJ Soul Tricks, bachata mix, really trying to get my son into that. He's not a good dancer, but he loves singing. And then when the wife and I are just hanging out, we listen to a lot of just chill beats, so-fi, and all these things that really kind of just get us into the mood to be chill. And so it really is an eclectic group of like musicians and music that we try to listen to.
Well, I figured, for me, I always think about my mood. So if I'm trying to wind down, I've got playlists for that. If I'm trying to get pumped up, I've got playlists for that. So I assume you were probably similar given your emotions. So I think reggaeton, I came across that genre. I'm sure I just slaughtered the name of it too, but I came across that genre during our quarantine when Trolls World Tour, like Trolls 2 movie came out, and my sons, that became their favorite Trolls that they have. And so I don't know if we know all the artists, but they love it. So if they had heard you say that, they'd probably be freaking out right now, naming like 3 or 4 artists that they know.
Hey, to that point, podcast world, if you haven't checked out Sing 2, that is a legit replay and, watch 2-3 times, over a weekend with the kids, because it has a little bit of something for everyone. Sing 2, we've been fans of that of late.
That is awesome. My mother-in-law, so my wife and I just took a belated 10-year wedding anniversary trip. And so my in-laws were gracious enough to watch all 3 of our boys, and they took them to Sing 2. And I've heard nothing but amazing things from my kids, and they're waiting for us to go with them again soon. So I appreciate you endorsing that. All right, last question. What is the best leadership advice that you've received lately, you've seen lately, it's been on your heart lately? It doesn't have to be brand new. It's just something that you just have really deep in your heart right now as you're pondering.
Well, I'm a man of faith, and I have and will always. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is my circle of control, my circle of influence that has always proven itself. And so when the world is on fire, or when the world is your oyster, always keep in mind to stay balanced within your circle of control, and understanding that your circle of influence will be impacted and grown because of it.
That's awesome. Well, Danny, actually, I'm going to start calling you the artist formerly known as Danny. I'm calling you Delos. The fact that Daniel De Los Reyes has been called Delos now, I am going all in on Delos. I think it's awesome. You're an incredible man, sir. And I say that because I know first and foremost, you lead with humility and love and service and putting others in front of you. And so I think you need to hear that it's just that demeanor oozes out of you. So I want you to continue to always be that, because that gives you strength, that has other people around you be inspired to do better. You've inspired me since the first day we met, and it's just an honor to have you, our lives kind of come full circle like this so quickly, so we can talk and share, your story with others.
Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah,
and just leaving you with some good tunes and vibes for you to take with. All right.
All right, I appreciate it. I hope the intercon's on right now, and then make sure, Lauren, let's make sure we clip this video of him dancing, so we can get some opinions on, does he have moves or not? Danny, this was awesome, man. Have a blessed day. Appreciate you so much.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, man. Please support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, podcast on Apple or Spotify, and help us celebrate the beautiful, messy work of shaping human potential.